Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how the NGOs, the transnational NGOs, are quite selective about where they do or conduct or hold their protests and street marches, their vandalism, their destruction of private property, their destruction of public property. They're quite careful about it. Now, what sort of got me thinking about this was a friend of mine's, friend of ours' daughter rather. She's quite politically active. So I got involved in it in really senior, or probably year 10 high school, I guess. It's in first year college now, and she's sort of in the super activist scale. I mean, in her case, I don't think it's got anything to do. You wouldn't call her an attractive girl, not by any stretch. So I think lack of anything else to do means that she to fill her time, she goes running around waving placards and screaming into bullhorns. But I was talking to her, and just out of interest, how does she get approached by these people? How do they broadcast, and they text and send emails, and there's quite a big electronic paper trail of what they're doing, what they're organising. Now, I've noticed if the police sort of find out about an anti-COVID protest, they marshal all the resources. They're on the case. They've got serious resources they're putting up, and they can plot all this and follow all this on social media. When it comes to the climate protests and all this other stuff that's globalist approved, very important to remember that, globalist approved, then the police just seem to have no interest in it at all. And given the massive electronic paper trail, they could clamp down on this at any time they want. But they don't, again, because it's globalist approved, unlike the anti-COVID stuff, which was not globalist approved, and therefore a large police presence was required. And the Western police and all the Western countries now, they're nothing more than globalist enforcers. That's all they do. The idea that they would be arresting criminals or something is now getting to the point where it's just quite absurd. They're globalist enforcers and protectors of those who are globalist enforcers as well. That's also important to keep in mind. But anyway, this girl sort of doesn't understand the law and how it works, and she's got no concept of responsibility or culpability or anything like that, and it's rather sad to see how she's managed to get through this much supposed education, and all she can talk about is the evil white people and how they've caused climate change and so on. Now, what interested me in particular was that the NGOs, she's affiliated with a few NGOs, they send a threat assessment out. So they call the troops out to do the placard waving and so on. It's reasonably well organised, actually. The placards and are ready to be waved. The signs are all done. The T-shirts are done up and all that sort of stuff. Then they given the chant to practice. Hey, hey, ho, ho, and da-da-da, it's got to go, that sort of stupid stuff. And she's all into that. She thinks she's really making a difference and fighting back against the man and all this sort of thing. But they give them a sort of a danger or a threat assessment. What's your likelihood of getting into trouble, getting arrested by the police or getting fined or something like that? And they say, look, you can do this. Well, we haven't got a permit for this this particular protest. They wouldn't give us one, or we didn't have time, or whatever the reason, they haven't got a permit. So they're doing an illegal protest, and they're going to try and disrupt downtown city traffic or block a street or multiple streets and this sort of thing. And they in their communication to the protesters, they give this threat assessment saying, don't worry, you're not going to get arrested or fined or anything. You're fine. We think the chances of getting arrested or fined are about zip. But if it is, then we've got pro bono lawyers on standby to get you out. So if you get arrested in the a very remote chance, then we don't worry, we'll have lawyers representing you for free. That won't cost you anything, and we'll make sure you get off and there's no charge recorded. So they're laying it out. They know in advance what the police are going to do when they conduct an illegal protest. So they're confident they won't get arrested. Now maybe things get out of hand, and maybe some of them do get arrested. Then there's the free lawyers on standby, ready to get them out. If it goes to court, the free lawyers again. Now, none of this stuff will be available in the real world. So these activist NGOs are creating an artificial situation that helps these people or ensures that they will not be held accountable. Now, let's suppose there's a protester that does get the NGOs aren't around. Protester decides to go in and block traffic or disrupt something, maybe deface a statue or something like that. And they get arrested, and they're going to spend maybe a night in prison. Not pleasant if you're not used to that sort of thing. And then they're going to get dragged into court, not by a sympathetic judge or an activist judge specially selected and picked by the activists to hear the case. You're going to get picked. You're going to get a judge or a magistrate who's going to say, "Hey, you've broken the law. Where's your permit? Okay, you've caused $500 worth of damage. All right, then. Well, you're going to get 3 months of weekend detention in prison and 250 hours of community service, and you're going to have to pay $1,000 fine, and the person has to pay their lawyer." Now, maybe the parents will pay some of that if their parents have got some money. Maybe not. Maybe they've got to hire a lawyer. Maybe they'll be lucky and get a legal aid lawyer. But legal aid lawyers typically are fairly busy, and they want to deal with, or should at least deal with, important cases. So that would be a big deterrent. If you had that, you would never do a protest again. And unless you were just a total fucking idiot, but you never do a protest again because you were held responsible and accountable for your actions, and so you wouldn't do it again. But it's different. The NGOs make sure there's no accountability, and somehow they're able to make sure that the police will either not intervene or not get involved, or if they do, will be very reluctant to come in with a heavy hand. Not like the COVID things where the police were shooting at people who were protesting and beating them with batons and truncheons. These people won't be subject to anything like that sort of stuff. So, so I queried this, and I'm saying, is that accountability thing? Now, to me, that was a super red flag, and I was onto it. But I didn't want to let her know that I the significance of that was in my mind at least considerable. But she's no, that's just how it is. That's how it's done. So I thought, wow, okay, all right. And these NGOs, that sort of activism, it should straight away they should lose their tax-free status immediately. I mean, people like Viktor Orban say, no, if you want to operate here and do that sort of stuff, you can't do it tax-free. And he's denounced as being a fascist for that sort of thing. But the reality is, if you're going to be activists like that, and that's fine if you want to do it, then you don't get to also claim to be a charity that's completely neutral in political matters. You don't get to do both. So that's something that. So these transnational activist NGO groups, they're getting away with terrible. Now they're able to do this all across the globalist-controlled Western world, and they're able to do things with relative impunity, tear down statues, do all sorts of things. You go to Russia and try and do that, pull down a statue of something, you won't get very far. You try and do that in China, you'll be in prison for a long time. So the NGOs don't do this sort of activism. They only do it in the soft targets. And the soft targets are the globalist-controlled West, where the globalists protect these NGOs and say, look, we want you to tear down and undermine and crush Western society. We want you to destroy every last vestige of confidence the Western citizens have in themselves, the white Western citizens have in themselves. That's your job. We'll protect you while you do it. And that's what these NGOs are doing. And and Western governments are now part of it. The public service, the governments, the departments of justice, the police, the courts, they're all in on the game of destroying Western society and preparing it for the Great Reset. And it's almost difficult to comprehend. And these silly little schoolgirls are running around doing the bidding of these NGOs and actually think they're fighting back against the man. Fuck. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.